Welcome to AIcoaching.com Expert Insights. Today we're joined by the brilliant Svetlana Videnova, an AI strategist with a knack for solving complex problems and leading innovative projects for global giants like the BBC. Not only is Svetlana a tech wizard, but she's an old friend, with a love for travel, local cuisine, and storytelling. In this episode, we'll dive into her technical expertise, her vision for the future of AI, and what it takes to implement AI at scale. Let's get into it.
Svetlana Videnova, how are you doing today?
I'm awesome. How are you?
Doing great. It's good to see you. It's been a while.
Yes.
So you're living in France now, is that correct?
So, yes, I think last time we met somewhere in California, I was still living in the UK, in London, and for the last 2 years, I live in France.
Yeah, you've traveled all over. What's been the most exciting and surprising part about living globally and moving around?
Um, I think it's uh, I hesitate between two answers, between people and food.
Yeah.
Honestly, this is the most differences that I experience. But yeah, it's awesome to see different cultures and different mindsets. Um, and obviously in Europe, you work quite closely with different type of clients and different backgrounds from all these different cultures that are uh, in a melting pot in London, for example. And it's awesome to be able to aggregate that and incorporate our ideas in the project.
Yeah, lots of different ideas and cultures. And so what's the food that made you move to France? Your favorite dish?
Oh gosh, I really love cheese.
Cheese and wine.
So you can't go wrong with that.
I'll do it. Nice. And so I mean, you've done so many cool things. As long as I've known you, it's like, wow, she does filmmaking, she does teaching, AI, all these different things. So how do you decide what to dive in next? And is it curiosity that drives you, or what drives
Yeah, definitely curiosity, but I have my secret passion, which is around films and TV. That's where we first met. Over what? It's over 15 years now. Oh,
you? Yeah.
But yeah, so I always wanted a job that is kind of that I can do from anywhere in the world, that links to my traveling passion. And I always wanted something to do with logic and mathematics, and that leads to my me choosing computer science degree, and then later on focusing on data and AI.
Need help finding the perfect AI expert for your business? AIcoaching.com offers free matching services to connect you with top AI professionals worldwide.
So it kind of all blends together. It doesn't make sense on paper, but it does make sense on in practical terms.
And where did that passion start? When did you realize you love math and getting into?
Mainly when my literature and philosophy teachers were like, just expand this sentence. It doesn't stop at this, and that. Just expand it. You need to write 6 pages rather than say everything in 2 pages. I don't know if you experienced that before, but yeah, it's very frustrating to having to say many things longer. Wow, it's just this, and that.
This is just what I need to say. This is what gets it across.
All straightforward and all yeah. I think that's where I realized math is more kind of the logical and science type of thing. It is more for me.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm on the other side of the spectrum. Oh, let's say a bunch of stuff. Yeah, let's expand this a lot.
But that's why you're good at what you do.
Yeah. Marketing is an interesting field for sure. So let's see. So you help businesses and organizations use AI and data to solve problems. What made you want to focus on this kind of work, and why is that specifically important to you?
Um, well, My background is as a software engineer, so I studied backend development, and I knew it wasn't enough for me to focus on lines of code. And my skills and my mindset were better utilized when I would see the bigger picture. So how to create a team, what the actual problem is, go into the discovery, be closer to the actual users, and then dive into different tech, different architectures. What is the bigger picture there? And then also the delivery part of thing. So that's why I thought this path would be better for me.
And you mentioned users. So, are you more exclusively focused on the back end, or do you deal with the front end as well? And like the, how the programs develop and how they get used. And
Yeah, well, for most parts, I would say maybe for 90% of the projects that I worked on, they're mainly user-centric. So there is a human at the end of the whole process that will be using the system. So yeah, definitely user-centric.
yeah, that's what, and when I do, marketing and tech, I always push like the tech teams, like that's what we need to do first. We got to talk to the user. We got to get back. We got to say, like, how are you using this now? And like, what's the real, I always think of it as the aha moment when it comes to software. Oh, wow. Like that just, completely solved this problem I had. And, so do you have any, specific circumstances that you developed something for a user or client that, you thought was like, wow, that's exactly what I want to do, or you felt really good about the problem that you solved with them?
Ha- Well, there's several, but um, maybe what I can focus on is the realization of um, having to attract younger audience for the BBC. And this younger audience is really interested in short form videos rather than long articles or longer videos. So we're not only talking about cat videos, obviously, we're talking about other subjects, but it's the format that was important for this audience.
Yeah. Cool. And so you started as a software engineer, and now you're into these big projects, working with the BBC and all these amazing companies. You've worked in industries like banking, aerospace, healthcare. So was there a moment when you realized that like, well, I guess we kind of talked about this, but like you're like, this is my path, and making it the priority, because I know you love filmmaking, you love these other things. What's that moment where you're like, man, like this is what I want to do?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's this moment was when I started my consultancy career. So before that, I was part of a team, but in-house. And as a consultant, I found that my personality matches much better as a consultant because I am able um to kind of blend in with a team that is already in place or to create a team myself. But given the culture and the history of the actual company, so that this team continues growing and continues learning after the consultants are gone. Um, so yeah, this me joining the consultancy was just the aha moment of this is definitely for me. Also, is the variety of things. So, um, I would I would be put on projects that are between couple of weeks long with a quick discovery, and then other projects that are more than 2 years long with multi-million pounds and different sort of problematics. It's just the variety of length, complexity, and people involved, different stakeholders. So this variety is what I was lacking when I had just an internal job in-house.
Yeah, yeah, I get that. Is there a certain industry that you gravitate towards that you really working in?
Well, that's an interesting question because I I I don't think I have a specific industry, especially in tech. I find that a lot of the questions are similar. It's just kind of shaped in a different form and the vocabulary is different. But underneath, we're describing pretty much the same problems on the tech perspective.
So that gives you the variety. You can work in these different industries. The core functionality and the needs are very similar. So you can go into the expertise, but also have fun.
Yeah, exactly. I love that.
So you're also a visiting lecturer, teaching AI and big data. How does teaching fit into everything else you do? And does it inspire your work in a certain way?
So I was holding a role of kind of a mentor for my some of my colleagues or my team. And definitely there is a part of mentorship when you're a consultant within the client side. So just teaching students in university, it kind of it just feels natural. Um, with the only caveat that obviously if it's a bachelor one student, they would be straight out of high school. They wouldn't have the experience that some of the industry people would. Um, but it makes me feel good because we're setting the right foundation with the right vocabulary again, so that when they go on work for a company or on the client side, they can adapt and they would recognize what the problems are and then provide solutions better. So yeah, the teaching side is fairly new to me. I started in September 2024. And it has been great so far because I had already master 2 and bachelor 1 students for 2 different topics, and it's just a great interaction. And also it confirms that um, some of the questions that are asking are also some of the questions that I already experienced with some of the clients. So it's funny how a student might think in a similar-ish way as a client that has maybe 30 years experience.
Yeah. Do you notice a big difference between, I guess, your experience of teaching the newer students versus the more technically savvy ones? I'm sure there's kind of pros and cons to each.
Of course. Well, this university, EA school, it it's a little specific because they require the students to have internships during their process of studying. So M2 students, they already have at least few months experience within a company. So you can see that they're kind of more aware of the company culture or what's acceptable, what's not, etc., etc. And also, I was surprised because some of the students that I taught in December, they already had their startups and they already sold their startups like in the last year or so. So I was very impressed. Not in AI, not in tech, but it's impressive.
Yeah, that's exciting, right? Like seeing that passion, and they're like, wow, they're at the start, but they're already going. And yeah,
I know. I just want to cultivate that. And if they want to create a startup in this domain, I want to give them all the tools to do so. Um, and yeah, succeed.
yeah, yeah. I've always enjoyed that, working with, like, the startup weekends, and yeah, just seeing people and just the amount of ideas. Like when you're on the internet or things like, you're like, man, like, okay, I know my domain and things are all the same, but then you do things like that, you're like, wow, I never even thought of that as a business or an idea. It's pretty exciting.
Yeah, it is. I love it.
So, when you work with companies, you work with these clients. So you mentioned like some of the same things come up with the students as with the clients, and what are the biggest like AI problems or like data strategies uh, that these companies are facing? What do you usually start helping with them with?
Identifying the problem. So there is usually a big misconception between what the statement of work says and what the actual problem is. And as a consultant, you come in prepared with a team or with a set of predefined skill set based on the problem described in the statement of work. However, in the first week within the client site, you realize that actually the problem is something else or different. So then you have to readjust the skill sets that you work to put on for this project. So finding exactly what the problem is, that's a little bit linked to the discovery mode and the user experience that we mentioned earlier. And then kind of there is a little bit of a coaching thing as well, which is okay, what's kind of describing them this problem in their own language. So
Yeah, understand that business language.
yeah, exactly. If it's, for example, something to do with media, use their jargon or use their sort of examples so that they can grasp the impact of what if we don't do anything, or what if we just put aside this and focus on this other thing? What are the repercussions? Um, and another thing is around data strategy. It's I spoke to a colleague before, and we were talking about this a company need a data strategy? Of course they do. Do they need data ethics? Of course they do. Like it's something that it's kind of rhetorical questions, but it needs to be understood by the stakeholders that this type of things don't just appear. You need to put the effort on and to make it good and to make it legal as well, with um all the legal stuff that are coming up, AI Act in Europe and a bunch of other things. So yeah, it's the team, the understanding, the strategy. It's a lot of things.
Well, yeah, and they don't know what they don't know. They just know there's an issue, and they know they need to catch up, and that's a very, I know that's a, when I think about like compliance and the laws and how they're changing with AI, and then every time, like, I'm always kind of the head of the market when it comes to marketing, but now with AI, it's like I could log in, YouTube and start watching stuff, and there's 10 new major news stories like every day. So it can definitely be kind of daunting. So when you approach that with clients, like where do you start when it comes to like, okay, I know I have this problem and you're starting discovery. What's your process to kind of dig in and really help them get to where they need to be to even like start the work?
um Actually, can we deviate a little bit? Because you mentioned there is such a buzz, and with all this information coming and talking about AI and data, that's a big problem for me. I've been in this industry for over 10 years, and just the fact that it's getting so much buzz and so much momentum right now because it's getting so close to the public, and everybody can go and generate an image. Everybody uses ChatGPT for personal or professional stuff. Um, but there are like articles and news happening, popping out everywhere, and it's very difficult even for professionals and for experts to actually segregate the things between the actual papers and studies and the noise. So that's quite distracting. And and I suppose I read an article, and some are struggling with mental health as well because of that. So I think this is an important point to kind of be aware of as well. And back to your question, where do I start? So I start with discovery. I start with finding out who I need to speak to in terms of stakeholders, and within stakeholders, I mean also the different levels. So it could be C-level, it could be directors, it could be devs, it could be users, it could be people from different departments. Just mapping out who I need to speak to find out what the actual problem is. Then write down what their experience with this, what their expectation and understanding of this is, and how they're actually using the system they're using or the product. Or the process, what is wrong with the process? Are there any bottlenecks and stuff like that? And then based on that, I try to find out if there are any quick wins that we can implement straight away, so that kind of we can ease the process and we can get a little more receptive towards mm, like bigger solutions that might need implementing. I try to describe what I find in a very approachable manner without like tech jargon to make it understandable for everyone. Um, and I try to propose solutions if I'm already at this stage. However, the solutions might be something to try out as an MVP, or it could be a little more extended solution where we already have expertise, we have done it several times, and this is the thing that actually needs doing. Otherwise, you're gonna run out of business, or you're gonna be illegal, or you cannot keep this type of data, or something like that. Yeah. So that's pretty much the process.
Yeah, and because I think about that a lot, and that's kind of really why I started AIcoaching.com, is like there is that level of complexity, but then kind of like we were talking about earlier, fundamentally it's the same things, right? We're trying to achieve very similar things. We're trying to, you know, bring in more revenue so we can hire more employees, so we can grow bigger, we can solve more problems. And that's something I think all of us were trying to wrap our heads around with AI, because it's moving so fast. But I keep coming back to, well, it's a tool, right? It's and so it doesn't lead, we lead, so and making sure we have that sort of mindset, and then going into it as, all right, well, I loved your earlier answer on just, the users first, like focusing on the user. And I try to do that with my marketing, but also I work with a lot of tech teams, and it's very easy to just get lost in the tech.
Yeah.
Well, we're building this thing, we're going out, oh, could we do this? Yeah. And then all of a sudden the user's like, well, what are we doing here? Like, do I even want to use this thing? Yeah. And I think, when it comes to like, well, how do we approach the complexity? I think it's focus, right? It's simplicity. It's coming back to, all right, well, what are we using all this for? Okay, we don't maybe need to use all that. We could just use this. We just need to, like MVP, we just need to get across the finish line and finish this milestone and get to that next better, state of the business. Yeah, but I think we're all kind of in this together, both from like the technical aspect and communications and kind of, from businesses to the public, like figuring out what that language is that we can all kind of approach, because that's, oh wow, I can do all these amazing things, but what do I want to do next?
Yeah, and also the language integration. So there is like we spoke about it earlier, the different categories or the different job titles. This is huge problem as well, because somebody with the same title will have completely different tasks to do from one company to another, and that doesn't help at all, either the job seekers or the actual company to find the right candidate.
Yeah, that's exactly right. We're losing some of the concise definitions of the type of work, and it's complex because, like, yeah, many of the roles I've been at recently, it's like, okay, you're marketing, but you're also e-commerce, but you're also, you know what, you kind of got to get into operations. You start like, oh, I'm all over the place, all these other departments, and which is good, because I think there's a lot of value to be had there if you get you siloed in departments. So like there's kind of these these interesting pros and cons to it, because like in marketing, a lot of times there's disconnect between product or engineering and marketing, and I find that like getting user feedback and connecting with the product development and that feeds into the marketing and how do we communicate the value. So I think there's an interesting kind of thing happening where there's a good thing where we're kind of communicating more between departments, but it also is important to say, well, this is my lane, that's your lane. And that can definitely get kind of lost when the organization gets a little more flat. So, so let's see. So what's so a lot of businesses, they have specific technical problems. Can you speak to like something you've worked with recently where it's a common problem that businesses had, and you've been able to approach it with AI, whether that's and at what level? So I think one place that confuses people is, okay, well, I can jump into Chat GPT and I can use prompts and hey, just do this thing for me, do some coding, and now there's a lot of really niche and interesting SaaS coming out. But then there's also like, all right, well, I'm using an API and I'm plugging in. So like, which do you usually approach when it comes to companies and stakeholders? Because I know like let's just say in the marketing department, they might be like, oh, let me just get a Chat GPT account and plug in. Engineering, they might be like, well, let me run this API into this program. And then, in legal, they might be worried about, well, what does all this mean with the data work? So what's a common problem that you approach and like a solution that you implemented with it?
One of the most common problems is the source of truth and aggregation of data. So you may have different departments, all those that you just described, and everybody is logging pretty much the same data, but separately in their own, oh, God forbid, spreadsheets, or some other tools that weren't even approved by the tech department or whoever. So at the end of the day, all of these 4, 5, 10 departments are creating data that is potentially duplicate and is becoming very hard to track, because some of these data they're not even allowed to keep past X amount of time. Some other, it's very like for it's very difficult to find the source of truth between all of these departments, and then based on that you may incur loss of business. You may have wrong reports, which leads to wrong business decisions. So yeah, I suppose this is the common problem and the way to do it. So there are some tools that you can aggregate data from several different places, but then again, the tool wouldn't know which is the source of truth. So you would still need some human interaction to find out what do we accept. So then you have other tools that are setting up different rules. If this, then that. But then we enter a little bit in a spiral of solving a problem that shouldn't exist in the first place. So there is a mixture between solving the actual process of recording correctly the data using this one tool, not 500 different tools. And also there is a problem of coaching. So every single team has different potential levels of understanding of data and AI, and the legal repercussions towards it. So leveraging the company overall understanding of how to treat data, how to utilize it. I think it's a must. A little bit like back in the day when agile methodologies were first set in the software development practice. If you had even one person not fully understanding what agile Scrum, for example, is, the whole process is a little bit crumbling. So you kind of need this same level of understanding across the company.
Yeah, that I dealt with that a lot. So when I was at Essler Luxottica, you have all these different brands that they call banners, right? So you had Oakley and Ray-Ban and all these, and then you had managers who would be managing multiple different brands, but then they're also across multiple different countries, across multiple different teams, and then everyone has their own process, their own software. So we'd have what we call our source of truth, like Adobe Omniture, but then we'd have every other tracking thing you could imagine. We have all these different. So I just have, okay, well, I'm going to do all this. I'll pull it into a spreadsheet and I'll grab all this. I'll pull it in a spreadsheet and I'll do all this stuff. And it's so, and yeah, in the world of AI and all these amazing capabilities, I couldn't believe I found myself doing that, like at that level with those brands. And I'm like, what is going on here? Why can't we bring it together? And to the stakeholder point, I tried so hard, and it's political and it's complicated, and especially like you're saying, like the jargon of it and the technical understanding of it, it's such a big gap. And I'm like, I go across these different departments and talk to all these people, and I'm like, hey, let's aggregate this, let's bring it in. And I was, hey, there's this tool, we could try to do it. Oh, we could bring, and it's tough. It's really tough.
It's tough to get alignment, but it's also tough when you have like a legal commitment or a contract with a certain tool that expires in, let's say, 3 or 4 years. That means for the business people that they'll be paying for this tool for nothing if you end up using this other tool. But then at some point, like something needs to change. Get the hit, I suppose.
That's where showing that business use case of, all right, well, here's how it is. Here's what you're able to do when the data is aggregated, and show, forecasts of like, all right, well, once this is aggregated, for one, you're mitigating, legal issues, but you're also, bringing in all this new data and these new ways that you can go and utilize it and grow your company.
Yeah.
Have you found like a certain, I mean, you work with a lot of different types of companies. Is there usually certain stakeholders you try to focus on first? In certain.
I always try to get to find out my allies. That's the first thing. Yeah, this is we've been waiting for you. Like, let's just think about it. Somebody very motivated, somebody that is ready to just jump on and do the thing rather than wait for approval or something like that. Somebody that has been trying to do that internally, but for whichever reason they didn't manage to. Yeah, allies are my secret weapon.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, it's amazing how political things can get, or how much you got to be very strategic about it. But it's just, this is the better, showing you with numbers, and you got to convince that, you got to sell everybody.
Yeah, but like this is the good part of being an external consultant, especially an independent external consultant, because as an independent, I'm not tied to any specific technology, so I don't have anything to gain to push one solution over another. But also, I don't have the fear of sitting down with a C-level person and saying, this is bad, this is wrong. Well, I can understand if you are within the company, you may have this fear based on like progression or promotion or something like that. So yeah, that's quite of a positive thing coming from the outside.
Yeah, it gives that sort of objective perspective, because when you're in it, it's you're in the politics, you're in all the things going on, and that could be a breath of fresh air. Okay, let me look at this objectively, and it helps everyone to kind of see it in a different perspective.
Yeah.
So like, if it goes well. Let's see. So to that point of stakeholders, or incumbents and things like that, what's a way that you've helped a company like think differently about AI, or like in a probably like legal would be a good example, but an example of they're thinking this way, but they've got to adapt and they've got to change their thinking. Is there a certain point or a certain whether it's legal compliance or just the way that companies are thinking about AI that's incorrect, that you've helped to kind of change their perspective? And that could be like, like fear or things like that, where like it's not actually, it is a big opportunity and there's some threats, but it's not as bad as you think, or it's not like, because I know there's a lot of those like fears, like, oh, if we start using AI, it's gonna compromise our data, or it's gonna, there's all kinds of things that people just don't know about or they're not sure about. Is there any examples of?
One of the things I'm thinking about is a client that had a fear of the cloud, so they wanted everything on-prem. And I mean, in my opinion, this is a little bit of an outdated fear because there is a lot of security going on. And I suppose it's true. If it's out there, it's like there is high risk to get the information. But then what are the advantages compared to keeping everything on-prem, which the new tools are not really made for? So securing the data, securing the different products is one. I'm also thinking of the opposite, actually. If like I've had clients that were so excited about implementing the latest tech, but actually they just needed a nice report, interactive report. It could be done with Tableau, Power BI, Data Studio, or any other. So it's kind of leveraging the fears and the advantages, and then the tech and the needs.
Something even AI they specifically need, exactly. Like so it's finding the best solution, and then and being able to use AI can even make it better, or it could be faster. Like that's what I'm kind of drilling into myself, is like, well, when and why do you need to use AI, right? Like, I mean, the real use case is when it makes things better. Like, can you work faster? Can you have a better output? Can you do better research? Can you make the code better, cleaner, tighter? What are some ways that you've used AI in your own life?
Well, I use ChatGPT and its equivalents. I actually found that some of the other competitors, I suppose, from ChatGPT work better in French than in English. I also saw that there is a new AI institute set up in Sofia in Bulgaria, and they have their own ChatGPT but Bulgarian native, and they have much better results. Like the syntax and the actual semantics are much better when used in Bulgarian. So these are the kind of differences that I find. I use quite a lot of image generation. So if I write a blog post, for example, or an article on LinkedIn, sometimes I add a picture, and my beach pictures and holiday pictures sometimes are not fit for purpose. So I just generate one to make it a little more interesting rather than plain text. Yeah, that's I'm probably using many more. I just don't drink.
Yeah, I've been enjoying Perplexity and more recently Notebook LM, because I really like the ability to search many different things and find many different sources and kind of aggregate those sources. Yeah, Notebook LM is cool. If you haven't tried it yet, it's the Google one. You can get in there free, and you can take 50 different sources. So like Perplexity will automatically search a whole bunch of sources. And then Notebook LM, you can go and just plug in, a YouTube video. You can various types of multimedia. You can connect a drive, and so then you can kind of just pull a lot of different insights and things from that. I found that pretty useful for for research.
Yeah, it is. There is also Pi. I can't remember what the name is. Pi. Yeah.
So let's see. So you approach things in a pragmatic and innovative way. So how do these values show up in your work, and like how do you personally like to approach challenges? What's kind of ethos?
Well, try not to get fired, for example. Well, I like to be open and transparent of my findings, and that sometimes is not liked because, well, people usually don't like the truth. But it is important, especially in business, because that's why I'm hired for. If I'm there just to sugarcoat things, it's not the best use of your money, and it's not the best use of my time either. And it doesn't advance nor your product, nor the technology, nor the industry any further. So the pragmatic way is a little bit linked to your first question about how did I get into this in the first place, is because I go straight to what I think it needs to be doing, rather than kind of taking a little bit of a zigzaggy approach. Um, it's more. I'm trying to be more focused on results and concrete things rather than hypothetical scenarios. The hypothetical scenarios are good for convincing. So, what if you don't do anything? What's gonna happen? Um, and then mitigation. So what if this or this problem occurs? Then you can do this, and this. But this is all included in a data strategy that I usually put on for clients. Regardless if it's a data strategy specific work or if it's a discovery out of which I would have the insight from your company, and within the data strategy I would put on something for that too. Yeah. So that's
And so if someone's on the fence about hiring you, what's what's like the main thing that kind of differentiates you from others, and what should they be thinking about when they approach hiring you?
I think is the A to Z approach. So I am able to see the bigger picture. I'm able to see what the problem is, what the potential solutions could be, and all the way through the delivery. So it's the whole spectrum of from beginning right to the end.
Yeah,
Based on my background as an engineer, then worked as in product and program management, and the variety of industries. It allows me to speak to different teams within every single step of this process, and a lot of it is translation and communication and kind of blending with their own language, understanding the architects, understanding the problems of the software engineers, translate that back to the C-level, and their worries back to the tech teams. It's the whole management of it all uh, that is quite unique, and you need to have experience in all this variety of situations, and having been part of each individual team, understand how they think, what their worries are, and all the way through the delivery.
end-to-end service. And I mean, sometimes that's literally translating. You speak what, 4 languages? Is that right?
Three. My Spanish is really bad. So Bulgarian, English, and French.
Working on the 4th. Wow. You found has that been a part of your work? Like, have you worked with some multinational countries, or is it usually defaulting back to English? Or
It's mainly defaulting to English. Yeah. What helps is, even though we're all speaking English, the mimics, the gestures, the body language, the intonation, all of that accounts as well. And based on the nationality that the team has or the person has, then it's a different take. It needs to be perceptive as well, because sometimes you're dealing with egos, sometimes you're dealing with difficult tech situations, sometimes you're dealing with difficult political or economical situations like around COVID. Yeah, it's important to be human, to be a team player and understanding, and then within all these complexities, move the project forward as well.
And so, what kind of clients or projects are best fit for your skills, and who who's the right type of person to reach out to?
Uh, the right type of person is probably in tech directors and CTOs, CDOs. If they have something in mind, then I can help them make this idea an actual reality, help convince the others, help them with setting the team, help with the strategy, and then help with the delivery. Industry, I don't know. It's just it's um, I haven't unlocked myself within an industry yet.
Yeah. And so what's next for Videnova.com? Any new services, exciting projects coming up? Anything people should know about?
I think I'm currently thinking about a few products to put out, but they're very early stage. So I will text you in the next few weeks to confirm that.
Yeah, we'll definitely be excited to hear about that. Let's see. So I guess to kind of close out here, what I guess what's your vision specifically for how businesses can use AI, but not just like for growth or bottom line, but I guess more of the bigger impact. Like, what do you think is so meaningful about this shift? Like, I think about it as like when the internet kind of came and um, I was young enough where it almost seemed like it's always been there, but I do remember the shift and it was massive. And then you had like, Y2K, oh, the fear, but then there were a lot of bad things that happened, but really it transformed the world in some really powerful and meaningful ways. What do you see as like the future for AI and for businesses?
I think it's very important to keep human in the loop. So there are quite a lot of layoffs happening in the last few years. And these layoffs, I feel like they're not always justified, or somebody's making a decision without actually understanding what AI can bring, and that not everything can be automated. I do believe that a lot of things that a person will be bored of doing or they're repetitive should be automated. That's just not utilizing the human in their best capacity. Um, but that brings a few problems, I think. One of them is um, you still need to have an elite team within the company making the decisions rather than leaving that to an AI tool.
At AIcoaching.com, we make finding the right AI expert easy and free. Whether you need help with strategy, implementation, or innovation, our platform connects you with the vetted experts tailored to your needs. Save time, reduce complexity, and start solving your biggest challenges today. Visit AIcoaching.com to get started.
The second problem is, what do you do with these people that are not doing the repetitive tasks anymore? And I always thought that technology and AI should emphasize people's lives. So lead the creativity and explore more the creative side of the human nature. So allocating more time to do that as a person rather than spend hours and hours doing on a task that can be automated. And that links a little bit to the movie industry and to the creative side of things that I really like. Yeah. So
Svetlana, thank you for joining. We're excited to have you at AIcoaching.com. And yeah, so any last words of wisdom about AI?
oh gosh. No, I'm just excited to see what's coming up next, and let's bring the creative sides back to the human nature.
Great. Well, thank you, and we appreciate your time.
Thank you so much, Brian. It's good to chat to you.
Thanks for tuning in to AIcoaching.com Expert Insights. A huge thank you to Svetlana Videnova for sharing her expertise and stories with us. If you're ready to take your business to the next level with AI, visit AIcoaching.com for free matching services with top experts. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and stay tuned for more inspired conversations.